How do you do? Welcome to another edition of XFeed. If this is your first time tuning in, what's up? Stay a minute. We talk about Web3 NFTs and maybe your favorite collection. So, the big topic of the day, which we'll get to more in depth because I pulled up, I don't want to say like 20 different posts from different industry leaders, different opinions on what's happened. But basically, there was a Wells notice that was put out to OpenSea. They've randomly said that they are going to give like a fund of $5 million to creators that are affected from this. I didn't think this went any lower than just affecting OpenSea as of right now. So we'll see. But you have some good news and then immediately some bad news. And it's, this place is never a dull experience. And also just to highlight as well, inflation, all this crazy stuff, RuneScape, the video game hasn't changed its membership cost in several years, but now they're charging $17.99 a month. Oh my goodness. RuneScape's changing the prices. Things are looking crazy. Now, on a completely random side note, there's a man who built a 54 level house of cards in 8 hours and broke a world record. Hell yeah. Listen, a little bit of motivation, a little bit of something maybe within crypto. Maybe we can be out there trying to break some world records as well. Thought this was interesting where Blast has made a point of, I guess, like self-recognition, saying that they haven't been easy to get in touch with, and then just highlighting different people within their ecosystem. It is strange when you go to some of the bigger players out there and trying to find people that are associated with it. Usually you can find like the CEO or whatever, no problem, but actual other developers or people on the team, you have to do some significant digging. Now, Gordon Goner of BYC highlighting some of the ODK for what's going on with Achain, somebody kind of building an environment here. Just thought, it's kind of cool for people that are getting super creative out there. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to build some really cool things. Also saying, now imagine thousands of builders, thousands of experiences, thousands of games, all on Web3 rails with mass concurrency and in-game NFT transactions enabled. So I guess just for argument's sake, I think this is cool, but a lot of the times all of these kind of aspects, and we can talk about every single network in this kind of way, is okay, where are the users going to come from? And we'll have some news about Project Dragon, which is happening tomorrow in just a little bit. But the question is, for those play tests right now, they have 3,000 to 4,000 people playing them. And that's, I guess that is thousands, but I'm assuming you probably need significantly more than just a handful of thousands. Mika is saying, remember that first NFT you ever bought? I'm trying to think. I don't think it was Zedrun. It might have been Hunar's art. It wasn't BYC. It was NBA Top Shot. July 2021, I bought a Subduck for 0.2 ETH or $600 at the time. We're not reading the rest of it. Oh my goodness. Imagine paying $600 for a JPEG. Unbelievable. Kind of nuts, right? When we think about back in the day, bigger prices didn't really matter. The hype was there. Obviously, it was an interesting time within the market, but people really didn't think about things the way that they do, and it got kind of crazy. Now, do we ever get back to those heights? I don't exactly know, but the question for you guys, do you remember your first NFT purchase? After years of constant FUD, controversy, fake narratives, and ridicule, Yuga Labs is still the #1 NFT company in the world with the highest floor prices of any PFP project out there. Again, kind of insane the heights that they've stayed at in terms of prices. Obviously, we can make arguments about different leverage protocols using both CryptoPunks massively and Bored Apes throughout the time, but the token yield, the different airdrops, again, I think there's a reason they've been at the top, but there was kind of this dig at it all, to be honest, where somebody was answering the question kind of about like, why are they still at the top? And the same reason Gala Games, who rugged every single of its games, is ranked 5 in Web3 gaming, well, barely nothing on the top ranks makes any sense. Now, Immutable, Floki, Notcoin, Beam, Gala, Axie Infinity, the Sandbox, still don't really get for the Sandbox why it's at the heights that it is for that. Ronin's doing very, very well. I would put Ronin way ahead of Sandbox. So, just as that as an example. ApeCoin, there's not really been any utility except for staking to it and the narrative. So that seems odd. Prime has been climbing quite significantly. And again, the game's got a lot of attraction, the esports side of things. And Gala, again, I've kind of been a Gala bear of I don't understand any of the decisions, any of the games, anything, but it's still a top 100 coin, which is absolutely insane. Now, Achain also announcing that they are bringing on EasyX DeFi demystify and highlighting that they have simplified leverage trading. Listen, when you have those opportunities out there for people, they might not have dealt with leverage before, but when it's on a chain they use and they're familiar with it and the app gets pushed, market's good, get interesting. And apparently Gordon is going to be chugging an M2 mutant serum at ApeFest, and that's going to be fun to see. Now, yesterday, Ton blockchain, again, the ones that are building on top of Telegram, they stopped processing transactions. Well, at the point, it was like 3 hours ago. I think that it's working again, but this started making headlines, and I was like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Julian here from Doodles, and this is a very great perspective, to be totally honest with you, and something that I've thought about, but this is well worded. So you see Doodles drop a teaser for a music video with massive artists, and again, it's got Lil Wayne, Coil Ray, all these other ones. You hear about Azuki hiring tenured entertainment industry executives. Again, massive names coming out of Azuki. I'm not personally familiar with them, but they've said, these guys are like top of the line with an anime. It's amazing for Web3, right? Definitely. But what always gets me is the comments of trade articles where people prematurely judge us because we were born out of an NFT project. Like we don't belong in their world. And trust me, it's not just the comments. We deal with this constantly in our day-to-day. Some people see what we're doing very clearly, and some are just stuck in the way they think entertainment is supposed to be created. But what is probably going over most people's heads is that the entertainment industry is going through the biggest consolation it has ever had to endure. Countless projects killed and thousands are out of work across film, music, television, and distribution. This isn't just a post-COVID correction. This is likely the new normal for some time. The system doesn't work the way that it once did. Not only are we redefining what it means to be an entertainment brand, but Web3 is literally creating entertainment jobs and greenlighting products that otherwise might not see the light of day. Artists are getting a chance to create outside of the established system. This is good for the whole industry. And again, there's a lot of narratives that we had, but it feels like there's a point where because of the prices of things, the, excitement that we had, there's a lot of components of it that are kind of brushed to the side and forgotten about, and I thought this was a great perspective. Fluff World, we're waiting for the Third Kingdom trailer. Holy smokes, we've been waiting a while, but 24 hours to go, and that was yesterday, so we got, I guess this is going to go out over 7 p.m. ET time. Very excited to see that, and also, I realized that TTK, standing for, the Third Kingdom, is also in, Call of Duty Time to Kill, so I feel like maybe we'll see posts when you type in TTK and it's a whole bunch of Call of Duty fans. Just listen, throwing that one out there. The Ducks, when we were talking just a moment ago about Doodles changing the entertainment industry, they made this tweet yesterday, and I love this in the NHL. Broadcast update. All local Ducks TV broadcasts will now be 100% free on all devices. Victory Plus, an all-new sports streaming service, will carry all live broadcasts on a dedicated Ducks channel that will feature exclusive shows and content. Very, very cool to see. Love that that's just becoming more, because sports in general, if you're in Canada, we have to pay for 65 different streaming services, and it's awful. It's awful. One thing that I've noticed most collections don't do, and Psychedelics Anonymous is doing this, and I thought it was, it's pretty sweet. Wellness Wednesday, breathing is meditation. They have a little quote in there, but they're going out there and offering different things where you can, jump in the voice chat, be a part of things. I remember back in Featureverse, there was a guy named Zen that used to do these meditation things in the voice chat. Some people might think that it's kind of weird, but it was a cool experience where they gave something that during the COVID era, when everything was online and you were forced to go through that, instead of going in person, having those kind of opportunities to have a class online. I just think that's super cool. So I wanted to give them a quick little shout out. Nameen says, I just flipped this Bored Ape for 0.5 ETH profit after gas and fees in 1 hour, 19 minutes, and 30 seconds. Does that mean NFTs are back? On Root Network News, Zertmon Mint has officially closed. 951 Zertmon minted, 4.5 million Root spent, or $100,000. Huge shout out to Shen and all the new players for Zertmon. Really, really cool to see the success of that mint. The 1-inch Discord has been compromised. Needless to say, there is no token drop as per usual. We're going to remind you about security. True, every day. Just listen, Discord's becoming a bad spot for it. And remember, people texting you, you're getting emails, double check where the emails are coming from. Have you actually done anything? A lot of these things aren't actually from the specific teams. The other day, Trump announced that they were doing some digital cards again with exclusive perks, back to having the dinner with them, etc., priced at $99 each. If you remember before, the first go around, these things went for like an insane amount of money, but I don't know if they're going to hold up per se, because again, if these things are utility based on an experience, well, once that experience happens, similar to your traditional NFTs, whenever the airdrop, if there is one, happens, we usually see a little bit of a cowabunga down the Great Canyon. Nearly half of real estate investors, 42%, have lost $200,000 or more on a single investment, with 45% admitting a bad investment has almost ruined them financially, and 40% wishing they never started investing in residential real estate in the first place, per Cleaver Real Estate. Now, Shell, why the hell is this a part of here? Well, first of all, if you can think of like the world and where people are throwing their money, whether it's stocks, real estate's a huge thing, the conversation around gold, Bitcoin, crypto, etc., seeing these headlines is kind of interesting because you see a lot of the time where people rip on NFTs saying, oh, anybody that bought into those, they're down 99%, 50%, etc., and it gives like a different spin on it when you can see other things and that having the effect on it as well. Now, I'm going to assume, they're saying 42% have lost like a lot. There's going to be a lot of people that have also done extremely well with it, but it's interesting trying to see, where does everybody want to put their capital? Yesterday, Trump launches NFT cards. Today, Gensler sues OpenSea, declares NFTs securities. Goodness gracious. Thank God this administration said they changed their stance on crypto. Oh, wait. So this is going to have some massive backlash for all of this because, again, there's a bunch of things that have been said. How do I word this? So my first takeaway, and we'll get into what Devin has to say here, which I think he's like the CEO of OpenSea. Yeah, CEO of OpenSea. And he kind of talks about like what happened, his perspective, et cetera. But number one, for almost everything that's had some kind of SEC involvement, there has been clarity in which there has been kind of a positive reaction afterwards, right? The only things I can think are negative are like Stoner Cats. There was the issue with them. They paid the fine and just completely like shut up shop, and that sucked to see. But generally speaking, there was the Ripple instance. I mean, even Yuga Labs had something that was with the SEC, and we've heard nothing about that for several years, right? And so I don't know, is this something where they're inquiring? I also saw somebody once talk about how, well, the SEC is like a division of the government within the US. And I was like, okay. Well, for them, they have like a team of people and they probably want to keep on having a job, potentially expanding their team, et cetera. So if you're in that role, wouldn't you want to take on more cases, find more things that are obvious? And, obviously within the crypto space, there's, arguably a lot of things that could be falling under certain categories or at least tried to push in that manner. And so is this actually not necessarily them being like, oh yeah, we have to take this down, and more of, hey, we just need our job, so we need to do something. And if we can get a whole bunch of attention for the SEC, whether good or bad, all publicity is good publicity, showing that we're doing something good, even though there's a lot of people on X. Wow, we hate X, all the people on, right? So there's all these narratives, all these things that can get changed, and it's wild. So anyway, Devin Finzer here. OpenSea has received a Wells notice from the SEC threatening to sue us because they believe NFTs on our platform are securities. We're shocked the SEC would make such a sweeping move against creators and artists, but we're ready to stand up and fight. Cryptocurrencies have long been in the crosshair of the SEC, and companies like Coinbase, Uniswap, Robinhood, Kraken, and Consensus, which are the ones that do MetaMask, have been fighting against the SEC's single track approach of regulation by enforcement. But this is a move into uncharted territory. By targeting NFTs, the SEC would stifle innovation on an even broader scale. Hundreds of thousands of online artists and creatives are at risk, and many do not have the resources to defend themselves. NFTs are fundamentally creative goods, art, collectibles, video game items, domain names, event tickets, and more. We should not regulate digital art the same way we regulate collateralized debt obligations. As we built OpenSea, we've heard so many stories about the impact of NFTs on people's lives, including student artists finding full-time careers and selling their digital art. indie game developers instantly enabling open markets for their in-game items without having to build marketplaces from scratch, passionate collectors from different corners of the world joining new communities all centered around shared digital ownership. It would be a terrible outcome if creators stopped making digital art because of regulatory saber rattling. Take, for an example, the suit filed against the SEC by musician Song Damon and conceptual artist Brian Fryer, which describes their fear that the sale of their art and music could be deemed unregistered security offerings. In addition to standing our own ground, we're pledging $5 million to help cover legal fees for NFT creators and devs that receive a Wells notice. Every creator, big or small, should be able to innovate without fear. I hope the SEC will come to its senses sooner rather than later and that they'll listen with an open mind. Until then, we'll stand up and fight for our industry. So, for argument's sake, I mean, we've had the Bitcoin, Ethereum ETFs. We've had basically almost every country that's, kind of pro crypto in some sense put out regulation saying, hey, we're not looking at NFTs the same way, but that's not happened within the United States at all. Again, there's been some hostility towards crypto, but, this is kind of initial scare. But again, is the SEC going to be running the same way if the administration changes? Is this going to have actually kind of like a just clarity perspective where we've seen with almost everything else, as I mentioned before, that's gone through this type of proceedings? And then further to that, there was all this notion around OpenSea. Why aren't they dropping a token? Why aren't they doing more innovative things? What the hell happened to OpenSea? If you remember back towards the 2021 NFT bull run, they were making hundreds of thousands to millions. I mean, they probably made $1 billion off of royalties during that time when there wasn't this, there's Blur and other options out there. OpenSea was absolutely cooking, and I'm assuming at the time they had a rather small team. So for argument's sake, I think they're probably sitting on a ton of cash right now, and maybe they sat back and were like, hey, this might be a big deal at a point, and so we can have the capital to kind of go to court with that, similar to the way that Ripple did before. And obviously that was all settled as well. Roham from NBA Top Shot and Dapper chiming in saying NFTs that are not financial in nature are clearly not securities, and most lawmakers we interface with understand this. We at Dapper Labs are working toward legal clarity for NFTs through forthcoming legislation to be introduced in Congress and support OpenSea in their fight as well. Tyler Winklevoss from Gemini saying the SEC Gov is now trying to claim that NFTs are securities. What's next? Baseball cards, comic books? Gary Gensler's bad faith and un-American war on crypto is expanding. Digital Web3 creators and artists are now in the crosshairs. Yatsiu from Animoca Brands jumping in saying stamps, baseball cards, or Magic the Gathering cards, CSGO skins, paintings, and autographs are not securities, and neither are NFTs, which are generally speaking containers of digital culture. While it's unfortunate, we applaud the efforts of OpenSea to stand up for our industry. Yo, we got a big launch from the watch. Yo, Jeremy. Hell yeah. We'll look at that towards the end, is running through a couple more of these posts regarding people giving opinions here on the SEC. And thank you so much for coming through on Yo, Jeremy. Okay, so if OpenSea received a Wells notice, why has Sotheby's not received one for selling art, or Nintendo for selling Pokemon, or Rolex for selling watches, or Valve for selling CS skins? So just NFTs are bad because they are on chain, or where do you draw the line? And you can see everybody's trying to give a different perspective on this. Mark Cuban, again, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, jumping in saying Gary Gensler screws up again. Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, congrats and welcome to the club. I'm long Wells notice companies. Not bad, not bad. And it's insane the amount of attention this has gotten. We'll see what the fallout, for lack of a better term, is over the coming days to weeks to months to years. We have no idea, but shall be interesting to follow. Now, I have a friend that I play League of Legends with, and they happen to work at one of the big banks. And I just saved this because this was from a while ago where TD Bank was out highlighting the Bitcoin ETF, and they were telling me, yo, have you heard of crypto ETFs, Shell? And I was like, yeah, what? We don't ever talk about crypto. Why are you bringing this up? They're like, well, at work, they started showing us all these different things. And I guess this is good that they have these ETFs because people can't get scammed through it. And I guess we're kind of opening up to that. And I was like, okay, this is my first experience with a friend that I have IRL that's brought up crypto in I don't know how many months. So very, very excited that happened. And it looks like, hey, for Canada, the regulation aspect is looking pretty, all right. LDO Trades quote tweeting Mario here. Apparently, the Telegram CEO, Durov, who was taken into custody, is now released, allegedly. So was all the freak out for Ton for anything, or what's going on? Because if we go to Ton right now, we are, I see that was less than around 9:45 a.m. We saw a little bit of an uptake, but if you go to the past 7 days, it's still down 17%, but quite a dramatic drop off for that. Garga highlighting that tomorrow at 6 p.m. ET, we got Project Dragon Episode 2. I need to try to remember to play that. I need to not forget. So somebody remind me, please. Here's a quick little snippet from a podcast that mentions Futureverse.
Just straight up user applications. We're starting to see gaming starting to happen. I think that's going to be a big breakout. But we've got so many of these consumer apps, the old movement of Web 2 to Web 3 or old internet to new internet. That's going to come at scale. And I think we're going to really start kicking it off this cycle.
There's the biggest activation of permissionless this year is a gaming 60 by 80 gaming lounge. It's a Futureverse, which is a one RT company actually, and Illuvium are showing off these games that they've been building for years, and now they're live games. They're actual games that you can go play.
Yeah, the other one that's just come out is Off the Grid.
Yeah,
which is huge.
This Futureverse is you guys connected with? Obviously.
Yeah. We twisted Aaron's arm enough to get him to fly out from. It's a 20-hour flight away.
New Zealand. Yeah.
So it's interesting because I think the Dan guy is actually one of the big investors and one of the funds that are investing in Futureverse. So he had a little bit of a smirk on there. But it's interesting that he's highlighting Illuvium and Futureverse and saying like they're going to highlight their games, because for Illuvium, we've seen all the games. They're pretty much out there. For Futureverse, that is not the case whatsoever. There's a couple of like side games, but I wouldn't really call them like the main focus from any means. So interested to see what happens at permissionless for this. And then I saw this article that was talking about open, and scrolling on through this, highlighting the the founders and all this kind of stuff, the Ready Player One component of it, and then why is open in a different caliber? Like the Ready Player One movie, Open is backed by Warner Bros. And other major IPs, giving them the leeway to develop a AAA metaverse experience. Open, like many other high-quality games, see Fortnite, Layers of Fear, is developed on Unreal Engine 5. So I think, when we get this, they've referenced Harry Potter worlds, they've referenced Game of Thrones world, they've referenced Lord of the Rings world. Is this now where like the metaverse has all those IPs? If that's the case, that is going to be spicy. And Jeremy here highlighting The Watch, not to be confused with the Game of Thrones watch on the wall, if you know what I mean. So let's check out what they're cooking here. Quick 2-minute video.
Location of bodies, Mike Bravo, 5458.
Yo, so the trailer looks sweet, but I feel like it doesn't like lead into like what the game is. So like they have like the characters, right? And it's all these, but they have like such a super hyper realistic style of trailer. It looks, I mean, like it's top quality, but I feel like it almost like doesn't highlight enough of like what kind of the game actually is about. But step in the first competitive action, real-time strategy game with Yo Jeremy, even though he says he doesn't own any assets anymore. But based on the trailer, we might be cooking good looking. Armando, all Warner Brother IPs up for grabs. They are down. So we highlighted, this was a couple of weeks ago. It's a good point that like Warner Brothers is like legitimately down incredibly badly. So we'll see what exactly happens on all of that. But again, the IP I think is still valuable. People are absolutely obsessed with things. If you go to obviously Disney World and see, you know, whether it be Star Wars, Harry Potter, all those worlds, there's still massive amounts for it. But yeah, some of the endeavors have not been that great. Yeah, it doesn't match the game, but most COD trailers do. Dude, the recent COD trailer made absolutely no sense. They were like, here's our multiplayer trailer. And it was just like, they showed 2 seconds of somebody with like this massive, like, machine gun that was like in-game footage, and then the rest was all like just random movement from like a third-person perspective. And I was like, this makes absolutely no sense. Buffalo Space, you've been mentioning Featureverse forever now. That's like the only thing I don't have any of. What's the best way to get some exposure? So like the awkward part with that is like there's almost like too many different like perspectives, and really it comes down to like what you're excited about, right? Because I mean, I could say like the tokens, if you're like, hey, I like the aspect of like AI and blockchain because there's Asto. If you like just the base network within Root, there's that. But for like an actual gaming perspective, we're waiting for the trailer tonight, and for the Third Kingdom, which is a strategy simulation game, kind of like Clash of Clans, Heroes of Mavia, if you're familiar with that. We haven't seen all of the footage yet. I've tried highlighting it here and there, but some argue, you know, the land for those, if you buy prisms, you can like extract more of the resources. And for Readyverse, which is kind of this big open world, the idea is that Third Kingdom game, that's like the strategy simulation game that has all these like resource gathering, is that those materials and resources are going to be used in that like bigger metaverse world. So on top of it having like a 312 million root pool, which is like pretty substantial right now. It's like several $1,000,000, and obviously goes more if root price goes up. So it's kind of dependent again if you want to go on the tokens, if you want to go for some of like the gaming aspects, because for most of the Futureverse related collections, you hold an asset and then you get a future score. And one of the reasons why I really liked them early on was because of that fact that they had some kind of like a loyalty metric, a point system that rewarded you that was obvious, because they have different quests where, you know, you use a certain app on there and then you get like a root reward based on what your future score is, which is typically like a multiplier of some sort. And different assets are weighted differently. But if you're like, hey, long term, I'm going to actually use that network, I don't know if I'd go out and do anything right now in terms of buying the NFTs until you're like, hey, like I like what's actually on the network, because, you know, you have to buy the assets and then usually you have to pay to use an experience. Sometimes it's like buying a $7 shoe for Reebok Impact on Instagram. That's one of their things. And then depending on your future score, you get some root drop for it. But yeah, listen, that's going to be it. What a stream, dude. Jeez. Insane to think that OpenSea is getting looked at now. Why now, right? Like, let's ask a very serious question. So all of a sudden, we've had the Ripple case end, which was basically all the news in the world, right? It was focused on what's going on there, and that's gone. And there's not really any kind of negative news around crypto, except for the fact that people are saying, oh, you know, like one political party doesn't seem like they're actually like that into crypto. Gary Gensler's still around, but it wasn't like there wasn't anything necessarily pressing. And then the OpenSea thing happens today, and it's like, why now when you've had like 4 years to go into it? Why do you choose now of all times? And so it goes back to the question of, well, maybe they're just looking for a job and they need things to do. But Mr. Yo Jeremy Armando, appreciate you swinging on by, boss. Buffalo Space, and anybody watching after the VOD, hope you guys enjoyed. If you are on YouTube, I'd love for you to give a like and maybe a comment if you have anything